She only went to return a lost wallet, but the billionaire who opened the door opened her heart too. The wallet was heavy in Stacy's hands. Heavier than leather and cash should feel. She stood outside the iron gates of the Asheville estate, her beat-up Honda looking ridiculous next to the cobblestone driveway that probably cost more than her annual salary. She should have just mailed it. Should have dropped it at the police station. But something, call it curiosity, call it fate, made her press that buzzer. When the door opened, Robert Franks stood there in a white shirt rolled to his elbows, barefoot, looking nothing like the Forbes photos. And when their eyes met, Stacy felt something shift. Something that would change everything. If you're new here, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And please, stay until the end. You won't want to miss how this story unfolds. To my returning viewers, thank you for being here. You know I always deliver. Now, let's dive in. The wallet had fallen out of someone's jacket at the coffee shop. Stacy had been closing up. Her shift at Mountain Brew always ran late on Thursdays, when she'd spotted it wedged between the booth cushions. Expensive leather. The kind that whispered money rather than shouted it. She'd flipped it open, expecting to find some contact info, maybe a business card. Instead, she'd found Robert M. Frank's driver's license, 3 black credit cards she didn't even know existed, and a faded photograph of a little girl with dark curls. The address on the license had made her stomach drop. Biltmore Forest. The neighborhood where trees had better pedigrees than most people. Now, standing at his gate at 8 o'clock at night, Stacy questioned every decision that had led her here. She could have called. Could have done a dozen things that didn't involve showing up at a stranger's house after dark. But the photo of the little girl had stopped her. Something about the way it was worn at the edges, carried close, had made this feel personal. Important. The intercom crackled. "Can I help you?" Stacy leaned toward the speaker, suddenly aware of her coffee-stained apron, her hair pulled into a messy bun. "Hi, I found a wallet. Robert Frank's wallet. I'm returning it." Silence. Then, "Drive up to the house." The gates swung open. Stacy's Honda sputtered up the driveway, past gardens that probably required a full-time staff. The house rose ahead like something out of a magazine, stone and glass and dark wood, lights glowing warm against the mountain twilight. She parked near the front entrance, feeling like her car might contaminate the pristine driveway. Before she could second-guess herself again, the front door opened. Robert Frank stepped out, and Stacy forgot how to breathe. He was taller than she'd expected. Broader. The photos online, and yeah, she'd Googled him during her break, hadn't captured the way he moved, easy and confident. He wore dark jeans and that white shirt, sleeves rolled up, exposing forearms that suggested he did more than sit behind a desk. His hair was dark brown, slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. And his eyes, gray-blue, the color of mountain fog, found hers with an intensity that made her skin warm. "You found my wallet." His voice was deep, with a slight rasp that did things to her pulse. "At the coffee shop." She pulled it from her purse, holding it out. "Mountain Brew on Merrimon. You left it in a booth." He took it, fingers brushing hers. The contact lasted a second too long. His gaze dropped to her apron, then back to her face. "You work there?" "Yeah. I was closing. Found it wedged in the cushions." She shifted her weight, suddenly hyper-aware of how she must look. "I saw your address on your license. Thought I'd drop it off rather than mail it." The photo inside, the little girl, it looked important. Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe. Or memory. "My daughter. Thank you. Really. You didn't have to drive all the way here. It's fine. I live in West Asheville. Not that far. Not that far." As if the distance between West Asheville's quirky bungalows and Biltmore Forest's estates could be measured in miles rather than tax brackets. Still. He glanced at the wallet, then back at her. "Let me give you something. A reward." "No." The word came out sharper than she'd intended. "I don't need a reward for doing the right thing." His eyebrows rose slightly. Not offended, amused, maybe. Fair enough. But at least let me offer you coffee. It's the least I can do. I make coffee for a living. Trust me, the last thing I want is more coffee. Wine, then. Or tea. Or water. He smiled, and it transformed his face from handsome to something that made her chest tight. I'm trying to be grateful without being obnoxious about it. Not sure I'm succeeding. Stacy should have said no. Should have driven home to her tiny rental, to her cat and her textbooks and the mountain of student loan debt that kept her up at night. But there was something about the way he stood there, barefoot on his own front steps, looking at her like she'd done something extraordinary instead of just decent. One drink, she said. But I have to be up at 5. I'll make it quick. He stepped back, gesturing her inside. I'm Robert, by the way. Though you probably already know that, given you found my wallet and, presumably, my entire life story via Google. Heat crept up her neck. Stacy Austin. And I only Googled you a little. Just to make sure you weren't a serial killer before I showed up. Appreciate the due diligence. He closed the door behind her. For the record, I'm not a serial killer. Though I suppose that's exactly what a serial killer would say. The interior of the house made her breath catch. Not because it was ostentatious, it wasn't. But because it was beautiful. Wood beams soared overhead. Windows stretched from floor to ceiling, offering views of mountains silhouetted against a darkening sky. Art hung on walls, real art, the kind museums displayed. And everywhere, that sense of space, of possibility, that only serious money could buy. Kitchens this way. Robert led her through an open-concept living area, past furniture that looked both comfortable and expensive. Fair warning, I'm not a great host. Housekeeper's off tonight, and I've been working, so the place is probably a mess. Stacy bit back a laugh. If this was a mess, her apartment was a disaster zone. Everything looked pristine. Perfectly placed. Like something out of Architectural Digest. The kitchen was all marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. A laptop sat open on the island, spreadsheets visible on the screen. Papers were scattered nearby, edges crisp with printed graphs and projections. Wine okay. He moved to a wine fridge that probably cost more than her car. I've got a decent Pinot Noir. Or I can do something else. Wine's fine. She perched on one of the bar stools, feeling out of place in her work clothes, her sneakers, her everything. You weren't kidding about working late. Story of my life. He poured 2 glasses, the wine dark and rich-looking. I run a tech company. Sustainability solutions for commercial real estate. Sounds boring, is boring, but apparently people will pay obscene amounts of money for it. Doesn't sound boring. Sounds important. She accepted the glass he offered. Climate change is kind of a big deal. You'd think. He leaned against the counter across from her, wine glass in hand. But getting corporations to care about anything beyond quarterly profits is like pulling teeth. Beautiful, expensive, morally bankrupt teeth. Stacy laughed before she could stop herself. That's a hell of a metaphor. I have my moments. His smile was self-deprecating. Usually around 10 at night when the exhaustion sets in and the filter stops working. What time is it now? 8:15. So you're still filtered. Terrifyingly so. They fell into silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Outside, the mountains were dark shapes against a sky going deep purple. Inside, the kitchen lights cast everything in warm tones, making the moment feel suspended somehow. Separate from real life. The little girl, Stacy said quietly. In the photo. How old is she? His expression shifted. The easy humor faded, replaced by something raw. Would be 7 now. She died 3 years ago. Brain tumor. The words landed like stones. Stacy's chest constricted. Oh God. Robert, I'm so sorry. It's okay. but his voice was rough. I mean, it's not. But you couldn't have known. And I carry that photo everywhere. Have since the day she was born. Can't seem to stop, even though she's gone. Stacy set down her wine glass before she could drop it. Her hands felt unsteady. That's not something you stop doing. That's love. Yeah. He took a long drink. Her name was Lily. She liked butterflies and pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse. She had this laugh, this ridiculous, infectious giggle that could make anyone smile. And one day she had a headache, and 6 months later she was gone. The grief in his voice was so raw, so present, that Stacy's eyes burned. I can't imagine. I'm so sorry. My ex-wife, Lily's mom, she couldn't handle it. The grief. She left about a year after Lily died. Moved to Seattle. Haven't heard from her since. He ran a hand through his hair. Sorry. You came here to return a wallet, not get my entire trauma history. It's okay. And it was. Somehow. Because beneath the wealth and the perfect house, Robert Frank was just a man carrying an unfathomable loss. For what it's worth, I think Lily was lucky to have you. His eyes found hers, and the intensity there made her breath catch. What makes you say that? You carry her photo. You talk about her pancakes and her laugh. You haven't boxed up her memory to make it easier. That's rare. Or it's unhealthy. My therapist has opinions. Your therapist can have opinions. Doesn't make them right. Stacy picked up her wine glass again, needing something to do with her hands. I lost my mom 4 years ago. Cancer. And the number of people who told me I needed to move on, or find closure. Like grief is something you finish and file away. It's not. It's just something you learn to carry. Robert's expression softened. How old were you? 30. She was 56. Way too young. Way too fast. Stacy swallowed against the tightness in her throat. She was my best friend. My person. And when she died, half of me disappeared with her. But you're still here. Still working. Still returning lost wallets to strangers. What else is there? You keep going. You find reasons to get up. You make coffee for people who don't say thank you, and you study for classes you're too tired to focus on, and you tell yourself it matters. That she'd want you to keep going. What are you studying? Social work. Online program through UNC Asheville. I'll finish my master's next year, if the student loans don't kill me first. She laughed, but it came out hollow. Thrilling, right? 34 years old and still figuring out what I want to be when I grow up. 34 isn't old. Says the guy who probably had his life figured out by 25. Hardly. Robert refilled her wine glass without asking. I spent my 20s building a company I hated, married to a woman I thought I loved. Took my daughter's illness to wake me up. Realize what mattered. By the time I figured it out, she was gone and my marriage was over, and I was left with money and a big house and the crushing realization that none of it meant anything. The confession hung between them. Stacy stared at him, seeing past the expensive clothes and the perfect kitchen to the man underneath. 37 years old. Widowed in grief if not in law. Carrying a daughter's photo like a talisman. So what now? She asked quietly. Now. He set down his glass. Now I throw myself into work. I fund pediatric cancer research. I sit in this house that's too big for one person, and I try to figure out how to live in a world where my daughter doesn't. That sounds lonely. It is. His eyes held hers. Which is probably why I invited a stranger into my kitchen for wine and trauma sharing. Not my smoothest moment. I don't know. I think it's pretty smooth. The wine's good. The view's incredible. And the trauma's mutual, so it balances out. He laughed, and the sound was surprised. Genuine. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone less. He gestured vaguely. Real. Well, I'm definitely real. Student loans and all. Those are brutal. You have no idea. Some months I debate whether I need electricity or coffee more. Coffee usually wins. Hence the job at Mountain Brew. Hence the job. And the side gig doing medical transcription. And the extremely glamorous life of a 34-year-old grad student living in a rental that smells like cat and regret. Robert's smile reached his eyes. I like you, Stacy Austin. The words shouldn't have hit as hard as they did. But something in his tone, the sincerity, the surprise in it, made her chest feel warm. Tight. I like you too, Robert Frank. Which is weird, because an hour ago you were just a name in a wallet. And now you're a person. A real one. With really good wine and a really sad story. That's my brand. Sad billionaire with wine. Could be worse. Could be. You could be sad billionaire without wine. He laughed again, harder this time, and Stacy felt an absurd swell of pride. Making him laugh felt like an accomplishment. Like she'd pushed back against the grief for just a moment. I should go. She glanced at her phone. 9:30. Where had the time gone? I really do have to be up at 5. Right. Of course. But he didn't move. Just stood there, wine glass in hand, looking at her like he was trying to memorize her face. Thank you. For the wallet. And for this. For listening. Any time. And God help her, she meant it. Robert walked her to the door. The night air had cooled, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. Stacy's Honda sat alone in the driveway, looking even more out of place than before. Stacy. His voice stopped her at the top of the steps. Would it be weird if I asked for your number? Her heart did something stupid. Why? Because I'd like to see you again. Buy you dinner. Maybe somewhere that isn't my kitchen and doesn't involve my life story in the first hour. That was a pretty intense first hour. It was. So imagine what date 2 could be like. We could discuss literally anything else. Weather. Politics. The superiority of cats over dogs. I have a cat. Then we're already compatible. Stacy shouldn't say yes. She barely knew him. They existed in completely different worlds, his measured in millions, hers in tips and loan payments. But something about the hope in his eyes, the vulnerability, made the word yes rise to her lips before she could stop it. Okay. Yeah. You can have my number. They exchanged phones. His was new, expensive. Hers had a cracked screen she'd been meaning to fix for months. When she handed his back, their fingers touched again, and that same electric awareness shot through her. I'll text you, he said. Tomorrow. If that's okay. That's okay. Drive safe, Stacy Austin. Good night, Robert Frank. She drove home in a daze. The mountain roads curved through darkness, her headlights cutting weak paths through the night. Her phone sat in the cup holder, his number already saved. She shouldn't be this affected. One conversation. 1 hour. It didn't mean anything. Except it did. She felt it in her chest, warm and terrifying and new. The text came at 6:15 the next morning, while Stacy was pulling shots for the early crowd. Robert, is it too early to text? Probably. But I'm awake and thinking about last night. Coffee sometime. My treat. And no, you don't have to make it. She smiled at her phone, nearly dropping the portafilter. Stacy, depends. Do billionaires sleep? Or do you just subsist on spreadsheets and mountain views? Robert, mostly spreadsheets. The mountain views are just a bonus. So is that a yes? Stacy, it's a maybe. I need to check my very glamorous schedule of work and more work. Robert, name a day. I'll work around you. Something about that, the ease of it, the assumption that his schedule could bend to hers, made her chest feel warm. People like Robert didn't usually bend. They expected the world to rearrange itself around them. Stacy, Sunday? I'm off at 2. Robert, Sunday at 2:30. I'll pick you up. Stacy, you don't know where I live. Robert, then tell me. She did. And then she put her phone away and tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting back to last night. To the way he'd looked at her. The way grief had made him human instead of intimidating. The way his fingers had felt against hers. By Sunday, Stacy had changed outfits 4 times. Her closet was a disaster of discarded options. Nothing felt right. Too casual. Too dressy. Too obviously trying. Finally, she settled on dark jeans and a deep green sweater that her mom had bought her years ago. It was soft. Comfortable. And it made her feel close to something she'd lost. Robert's car pulled up at exactly 2:30. Not the luxury sedan she'd expected, but a dark blue Range Rover that somehow seemed more him. Practical. Expensive but understated. He climbed out, and Stacy's breath caught. He wore jeans and a charcoal Henley, sleeves pushed to his elbows again. Sunglasses hid his eyes, but his smile was visible, warm and slightly uncertain. Hey. He opened the passenger door for her. You look beautiful. You look awake. Which is impressive for someone who works until midnight. Coffee helps. He waited until she was settled before closing the door, moving around to the driver's side. I thought we'd go to downtown Asheville. There's a place on Wall Street, small, quiet, good food. That okay? Sounds perfect. They drove through West Asheville's eclectic streets, past murals and breweries and vintage shops. Robert navigated easily, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the console between them. So, he said after a moment, I realized I did most of the talking Thursday. Tell me about you. The non-tragic parts. The non-tragic parts are pretty boring. Try me. Stacy shifted in her seat, watching the scenery pass. I grew up in Hendersonville. Small town, smaller dreams. My mom was a nurse. Single parent. We didn't have much, but we had each other. She worked night shifts so she could be home when I got out of school. Made sure I did my homework. Pushed me to go to college, even though we couldn't afford it. You went. UNC Chapel Hill. Graduated with a degree in psychology and enough debt to last a lifetime. Worked random jobs for years, waitressing, retail, whatever paid. Mom got sick my senior year. Breast cancer. She fought it for 3 years before it won. Robert's hand moved from the console to hers. Brief. Gentle. Then back to the wheel. After she died, I was just lost, Stacy continued. Angry at everything. At God, at cancer, at myself for not being able to fix it. I spent a year doing nothing. Just existing. Then one day I woke up and thought, she didn't raise me to give up. So I didn't. Hence the master's program. Hence the master's program. And the coffee shop. And the transcription work. And the slow, painful process of figuring out who I am without her. That's not boring, Stacy. That's resilience. Or stubbornness. Hard to tell. I'm voting resilience. They reached downtown, parking near Pack Square. The streets were busy with Sunday afternoon crowds, tourists and locals mixing, kids chasing each other near the fountain, street musicians playing for tips. The restaurant was tucked on a side street, small and intimate with exposed brick and soft lighting. Robert had clearly called ahead, because they were seated immediately at a corner table, away from the noise. Wine? He asked, scanning the menu. Or is that too predictable? Wine's good. I'm not a beer person, which is basically heresy in Asheville. You and me both. He ordered a bottle of Pinot Grigio, then leaned back in his chair, studying her. You're nervous. Little bit. Why? Because this is weird. A week ago, you were just a name in a wallet. Now we're having dinner and you're looking at me like you actually want to be here. I do want to be here. Why? The question hung between them. Robert's expression shifted, becoming more serious. Because Thursday night, I felt something I haven't felt in 3 years. Like I was a person again. Not just someone going through motions. Stacy's throat felt tight. That's a lot of pressure for a second date. First date. Thursday doesn't count. Thursday was definitely something. Thursday was a preview. Today's the main event. He smiled, and it was self-deprecating. And I'm already screwing it up by being too intense. My therapist would have opinions. Your therapist has a lot of opinions. She does. Mostly about how I use work to avoid processing grief. Which is accurate but unhelpful. The wine arrived. Robert poured for both of them, the motion easy, practiced. They ordered food, she chose pasta, he got steak, and fell into easier conversation. Music. Books. The absurdity of Asheville's craft brewery obsession. Anything but the weight of loss. But the weight was still there. Stacy felt it in the spaces between words. In the way Robert's smile didn't always reach his eyes. In the way she caught herself checking her phone, half expecting a message from her mom that would never come. Can I ask you something? Stacy said finally, twirling pasta around her fork. About Lily. Robert's expression shifted. Not closed, exactly. Just careful. Yeah. Do you ever? She hesitated, searching for the right words. Do you ever feel guilty? For moving forward? Like maybe you shouldn't get to be happy when she doesn't. His eyes held hers. The grief in them was so raw that Stacy almost apologized. But then he nodded. Every day. Every single day. His voice was rough. I'll be working or reading or doing something completely mundane, and I'll realize I'm not thinking about her. And the guilt hits like a truck. Because how dare I forget? Even for a second. But you're not forgetting. You're just living. Doesn't feel like a good enough distinction. No. It doesn't. They sat in that understanding. The restaurant buzzed around them. Conversations, laughter, the clatter of dishes. But at their table, the world felt smaller. Just the two of them and their respective ghosts. My therapist says grief isn't linear, Robert said after a moment. That it's okay to have good days. To feel happiness. That Lily would want me to live. He took a long drink of wine. But knowing that intellectually and believing it emotionally are two different things. Yeah. Stacy set down her fork. When my mom first died, people kept saying she wouldn't want me to be sad. Like that made it better. Like I could just decide to be happy because that's what she'd prefer. People say the dumbest things. They really do. But for what it's worth, Robert said quietly, I think your mom would be proud of you. Master's degree. Working your ass off. Returning lost wallets to emotionally damaged billionaires. That last one's definitely my greatest achievement. I'm honored to be on the list. They finished dinner slowly, ordering dessert they didn't need just to prolong the evening. Outside, the sun was setting, casting downtown in gold and amber light. Asheville looked magical in that light. Like a place where anything could happen. Walk with me, Robert asked when they finally left the restaurant. There's a park nearby. Good views of the sunset. They walked through downtown, past galleries and shops and cafes. Robert's hand brushed hers twice, tentative, before finally catching and holding on. His palm was warm. Slightly rough, like he did more manual work than his wealth suggested. The park was small, tucked on a hillside with views of the French Broad River and the mountains beyond. They found a bench, sitting close enough that their shoulders touched. I like this, Stacy said. Being here. With you. It's easy. It shouldn't be. Why not? Because we barely know each other. Because I'm a mess. Because you're 20 years too young for my bullshit. I'm 34. You're 37. That's 3 years, not 20. Feels like more. Why? Because you've lost more? Suffered more. Stacy turned to face him. Pain isn't a competition, Robert. And neither is healing. You're allowed to like someone. To want someone. To feel something other than grief. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. But it's not impossible either. Robert's hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek. The touch was gentle. Tentative. Like he was afraid she'd disappear if he held on too tight. I want to kiss you, he said quietly. But I don't want to scare you off. You won't. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. But Stacy didn't pull away. She met him halfway, lips touching his in a kiss that started soft and grew deeper. He tasted like wine and something warmer, his hand cupping her face, thumb stroking her cheekbone. When they broke apart, Stacy's heart was racing. Well, she said breathlessly. That was... yeah. They sat there as the sun finished setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. The moment felt suspended. Perfect in its imperfection. I should get you home, Robert said finally. Early shift tomorrow? 5 a.m. The glamour never stops. He drove her back to West Asheville, the streets quieter now as evening settled. When he pulled up outside her rental, Stacy didn't want to leave. Didn't want this day to end. Can I see you again? Robert asked. Soon. How soon? Tomorrow. She laughed. I work until 7. Then 7:30. I'll bring dinner. We can eat at your place. Meet the famous cat. My place is tiny. And not exactly billionaire friendly. I don't care about billionaire friendly. I care about you. The words landed warm and heavy in Stacy's chest. She leaned across the console, kissing him again. Slower this time. Deeper. Tomorrow, she whispered against his lips. 7:30. It's a date. She climbed out, but turned back before closing the door. Robert. Yeah. Thank you. For today. For making me feel like maybe it's okay to be happy again. His smile was soft. Genuine. Thank you for the same thing. She watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing around the corner. Then she unlocked her door and stepped inside, where her cat was waiting with loud complaints about dinner. But Stacy barely heard him. Her mind was still in that park, still feeling Robert's hand on her face, still tasting wine and possibility on her lips. Monday dragged. Every minute at Mountain Brew felt like an hour. Stacy fumbled orders, burned milk, forgot to restock the pastry case. By 6 o'clock, her co-worker Maya was staring at her with concern. You okay? You've been weird all day. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're floating. Which means either you found a great therapist or you met someone. Stacy tried to hide her smile. Failed. Maybe both. Oh my God. Maya's eyes went wide. Who is he? When did this happen? Why am I just now hearing about it? It's new. Really new. And complicated. All the good ones are complicated. Spill. But before Stacy could respond, the door chimed. A delivery guy entered with a massive bouquet of wildflowers. Mountain laurel, black-eyed Susans, purple coneflowers. The kind that grew wild in the Blue Ridge. Delivery for Stacy Austin. Maya squealed. Literally squealed. Stacy took the flowers with shaking hands. The card was simple, for making Sundays better. See you tonight. R. Maya grabbed the card. Who's R? Tell me everything right now, or I'm following you home. His name is Robert. We met last week. It's really new. And he's sending you wildflowers at work. That's not new, that's serious. Maya studied her face. You're glowing. Like, actually glowing. I haven't seen you like this since before Mom died. The words hung heavy. Maya's expression softened. Stace. That's huge. I know. It's terrifying. But good terrifying. Yeah. Good terrifying. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Stacy kept glancing at the flowers, arranged now in a vase behind the counter. Mountain laurel. He'd chosen mountain laurel. Her mom's favorite. She didn't know if that was coincidence or if he'd somehow known. Either way, her chest felt too full. At 7:15, Stacy raced home. Her rental was exactly as she described. Tiny, cluttered, smelling faintly of cat litter despite her best efforts. She did a speed clean, shoving clothes into closets, wiping down counters, lighting a candle that promised mountain morning, but mostly smelled like synthetic pine. Her cat, Hemingway, watched from the couch with judgment in his green eyes. Don't look at me like that. I know this is crazy. But crazy might be good. Crazy might be exactly what I need. Hemingway meowed. It sounded skeptical. At 7:28, Stacy checked her reflection. Jeans. Simple black shirt. Hair down. Minimal makeup because her hands were too unsteady for anything more. She looked nervous. She was nervous. The knock came at 7:30 exactly. Robert stood on her small porch holding 2 bags that smelled incredible. He'd changed from whatever billionaire CEOs wore on Mondays. Now he was in jeans and a navy sweater, hair slightly damp like he'd showered recently. Hi. His smile was uncertain. Boyish. I brought Italian. Hope that's okay. Italian's perfect. She stepped back to let him in. Sorry about the size. I warned you it was tiny. It's not tiny. It's cozy. He set the bags on her kitchen counter, all 4 feet of it, and looked around. The space was maybe 400 square feet total. Kitchen, living room, and bedroom all visible from where they stood. But Stacy had made it home. Photos on the walls. Books stacked everywhere. A blanket her mom had crocheted thrown over the couch. That's a generous description, Stacy said. Most people would call it a shoebox. Then most people lack imagination. Robert's gaze landed on Hemingway, who was glaring from the couch. That the famous cat? That's Hemingway. He's an asshole but I love him. Hemingway. Like the writer. Like the writer. Mom named him. Said he had the same grumpy, drunk energy as Ernest. Robert laughed. Can I meet him? You can try. He's not great with strangers. But when Robert approached the couch, moving slowly, crouching to Hemingway's level, the cat did something shocking. He stretched. Yawned. Then head-butt Robert's outstretched hand. Well, Stacy said. That's never happened before. Maybe he senses I'm a cat person. Or maybe he's a traitor who can smell money. Robert scratched behind Hemingway's ears, earning a rumbling purr. I prefer to think it's my natural charm. They ate dinner on Stacy's couch, the only place to sit, with plates balanced on their laps. Robert had brought chicken parmesan, garlic bread, and tiramisu from an Italian place in Biltmore Village. The kind of place Stacy had walked past but never entered. Thank you for the flowers, she said between bites. Mountain laurel. That was my mom's favorite. Robert's fork paused halfway to his mouth. I didn't know that. I just asked the florist for something that felt like the mountains. Coincidence, then. Or fate. You believe in fate? I didn't. But then you found my wallet. Stacy's chest felt tight. That's a low bar for fate. Returning lost property. Is it? Out of everyone in that coffee shop, you're the one who found it. You're the one who drove to my house. You're the one who stayed for wine and listened to my entire tragic backstory without running. He set down his plate. That feels like more than coincidence. Or I'm just nosy. You're not nosy. You're kind. There's a difference. They finished eating in comfortable silence. Hemingway had moved from the couch to Robert's lap, purring so loudly Stacy could hear him across the room. Traitor. He really likes you, she said. It took him 3 months to tolerate me. Maybe I remind him of someone. Who? I don't know. Someone safe. The word settled between them. Safe. It was the right word. Despite everything, the wealth, the grief, the intensity, Robert felt safe. Like someone who wouldn't hurt her on purpose. After dinner, they washed dishes together in her tiny kitchen. It required coordination, bumping elbows and hips, laughing when Robert nearly dropped a plate. The domesticity of it, the normalcy, made Stacy's heart ache in the best way. Can I ask you something? Robert said, drying his hands on her dish towel. About your mom. Yeah. What was she like? Beyond being a nurse and a single parent. Stacy leaned against the counter, remembering. She was fierce. Protective. The kind of mom who would fight anyone who hurt me. But she was also soft. She cried at commercials. Left food out for stray cats. Believed in angels and crystals and all this woo-woo stuff that made no scientific sense. Sounds like she was a lot like you. You think I'm woo-woo? I think you're fierce and soft. It's a rare combination. Stacy's throat felt tight. She would have liked you. Yeah. She had this thing about people's eyes. Said you could tell someone's heart by their eyes. Yours are kind. Sad, but kind. Robert stepped closer. Not touching, but close enough that Stacy could feel his warmth. Your eyes are beautiful. Brown with gold flecks. Like honey. That's cheesy. Accurate, though. He kissed her then. Slow and deep, hands cupping her face like she was something precious. Stacy's hands found his chest, feeling his heartbeat under her palm. Strong. Steady. When they broke apart, both breathless, Robert pressed his forehead to hers. I should go. Let you get some sleep. What if I don't want you to go? His eyes searched hers. Stacy. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. But I like having you here. In my space. With my asshole cat and my shoebox apartment. I like the way you look at me. Like I'm not broken. You're not broken. Neither are you. They moved to the couch. Robert sat, pulling Stacy down beside him. She curled into his side, head on his shoulder, his arm around her. Hemingway claimed the other side of Robert's lap. They sat like that, watching nothing in particular, just existing together. Tell me about Lily, Stacy said quietly. Not the sad parts. The good parts. Robert was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. She was bossy. God, she was bossy. Had opinions about everything. What I wore. What I ate. Whether I'd done my hair right. Stacy smiled against his shoulder. Sounds exhausting. It was. But in the best way. She'd wake me up by jumping on my bed at 6 a.m., demanding pancakes. Mickey Mouse pancakes specifically. And if the ears weren't round enough, she'd make me start over. Perfectionist. Completely. But she was also generous. She'd give away her toys to kids who didn't have any. Shared her Halloween candy with the neighbor kids. Once she found a hurt bird and insisted we nurse it back to health. Cried when we had to let it go. She sounds amazing. She was everything. His voice cracked. And some days I can barely remember her voice. That's what kills me. That her voice is fading. That someday I might forget what her laugh sounded like. Stacy sat up, turning to face him. Do you have videos? Hundreds. Then watch them. Watch them whenever you need to. Remembering isn't betraying. It's honoring. My therapist says the same thing. Then maybe listen to your therapist. And to me. Robert pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. Stacy felt his chest shake. Realized he was crying. Not sobbing, just quiet tears that spoke of years of held-back grief. She held him. Didn't offer platitudes or solutions. Just held him while he broke a little, trusting her with pieces of himself he clearly didn't show many people. "Thank you," he whispered eventually. "For this. For not making me feel like I have to be okay. You don't have to be anything with me. Just be." They stayed like that until late. Until Stacy's eyes started to droop and Robert noticed, insisting he should leave and let her sleep. She walked him to the door, reluctant to let the night end. "Tomorrow," he asked. "I mean, if you're free. We could do something low-key. Movie. Or just exist together." Existing together sounds good. He kissed her goodnight. Then kissed her again when she pulled him back. And once more because neither of them seemed able to stop. "Good night, Stacy Austin." "Good night, Robert Frank." She watched him drive away, his Range Rover disappearing into the night. Then she closed her door, leaned against it, and let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Hemingway meowed from the couch. Accusing. "I know," Stacy said. "I'm falling for him. Way too fast. Way too hard." Hemingway meowed again. This time it sounded like agreement. Stacy couldn't even argue. Tuesday became Wednesday became a week of late-night texts and stolen hours between shifts. Robert would show up at Mountain Brew during Stacy's breaks, sitting at the back table with his laptop, pretending to work while really just watching her. She'd catch him staring and he'd smile, unrepentant. "You're going to get me fired," she'd say, bringing him coffee he didn't need. "Then I'll buy the coffee shop." "That's not romantic. That's excessive. I contain multitudes." They fell into a rhythm. Dinner at her place most nights because his house felt too big, too empty. Movie nights where they'd start watching something and end up talking instead, curled together on her couch while Hemingway claimed whatever space they weren't occupying. Stacy learned Robert's tells. The way he'd run his hand through his hair when stressed. The set of his jaw when business calls went wrong. The softness in his eyes when he looked at her like she was the only real thing in his carefully constructed world. Robert learned hers too. How she'd bite her lower lip when nervous. The way she'd pace when thinking through a problem. The sound of her laugh, full and unguarded, when something genuinely surprised her. 2 weeks after their first date, Robert showed up at her apartment on a Thursday night holding a gift bag. "What's this?" Stacy asked, suspicious. "Open it." Inside was a leather journal. Beautiful. Expensive. The kind with pages that felt like silk. And a note in Robert's handwriting. "For your thoughts. The ones you don't say out loud." Stacy's eyes burned. "Robert, I know you're in your head a lot. Processing. And I thought maybe it would help. To write it down. No pressure. Just, if you want." She threw her arms around him. Held on tight. "Thank you. This is perfect." Yeah. They ordered Thai food. Ate it on her floor because Hemingway had claimed the entire couch. Robert told her about a meeting that had gone sideways, some investor who didn't understand the difference between sustainable technology and greenwashing. Stacy listened, asking questions that showed she actually cared, actually understood. "You're good at this," Robert said, stealing a spring roll from her plate. "Listening. Making people feel heard. Future social worker. It's kind of the job. It's more than that. You have a gift," says the man who built a billion-dollar company. Money isn't a gift. It's luck and timing and being ruthless enough to capitalize on both. What you do, making people feel valued, that's real. Stacy set down her fork. "You're not ruthless. You'd be surprised." "No, I wouldn't. I've seen you with Hemingway. I've heard you on the phone with your employees. You're demanding, sure. But you're not ruthless. You're just careful about who gets to see the soft parts." Robert's expression shifted. Became more vulnerable. "You see too much. Or maybe you're just letting me. He kissed her then. Deep and desperate, like he was trying to say things he didn't have words for. Stacy kissed him back, fingers tangling in his hair, feeling his heartbeat against her chest. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Robert pressed his forehead to hers. "Stay tonight," Stacy whispered. Just stay. Sleep here. I don't want you to leave." "Stacy." "No expectations. Just stay. Please." He searched her eyes. Whatever he found there made him nod. "Okay. Yeah. I'll stay." They got ready for bed in Stacy's tiny bathroom, bumping elbows while brushing teeth, laughing at the absurdity of fitting two people in a space meant for one. Robert borrowed a t-shirt that was too small on him, the fabric stretching across his shoulders in a way that made Stacy's mouth go dry. Her bed was barely a full. They lay facing each other, close enough that Stacy could count his eyelashes in the dim light from the street. "This is weird," she said softly. "Right? This is moving fast." "Yeah, it is." "Are you freaking out?" "Terrified." "You." "Completely." They smiled at each other. Robert's hand found hers under the covers, fingers interlacing. "But it's good terrified," he said. "Like standing at the edge of something and knowing you're about to jump. What if we crash? What if we fly?" Stacy's chest felt too full. She shifted closer, tucking herself against him. Robert's arms came around her automatically, holding her like she fit there. Like she belonged. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," she whispered. "Like what?" "Anything. Something true." Robert was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "Sometimes I'm angry at Lily." Stacy went still. Waited. "For leaving. For getting sick. For making me love her so much that losing her broke me." His arms tightened around her. "And then I hate myself for being angry. Because she didn't choose it. She didn't want to die. But I'm angry anyway. That's allowed." "It doesn't feel allowed. Grief isn't logical. You're allowed to feel everything, even the ugly parts." "What's your thing?" Robert asked. "Something you've never said out loud." Stacy breathed in. Out. "Sometimes I'm relieved my mom is gone." Robert's hand moved to her hair, fingers gentle. "Not because I didn't love her. But because watching her die was hell. The pain. The fear in her eyes. The way cancer hollowed her out until she wasn't her anymore. And when she finally went, part of me felt relief. That she wasn't suffering. That I didn't have to watch her suffer." "That's not wrong, Stacy. It feels wrong. Like I was giving up on her." "You weren't. You were letting her go. There's a difference." They lay like that, holding each other in the darkness, sharing the parts of themselves they usually kept hidden. Outside, Asheville was quiet. Inside, the world was just them. Stacy fell asleep first, face pressed against Robert's chest, listening to his heartbeat. Robert stayed awake longer, watching her sleep, feeling something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Terrifying, fragile, beautiful hope. The first time Stacy visited Robert's house during daylight, she understood why he avoided it. It was beautiful. Objectively stunning. But it felt like a mausoleum. All that space echoing with absence. Photos of Lily everywhere, on mantels, in hallways, cluster on the piano nobody played. 4 years old. Frozen in time. "I can't take them down," Robert said quietly, watching her look. "I tried once. Got them all in a box. Made it 3 hours before I put them back up." "You don't have to take them down. My therapist thinks I'm stuck. That surrounding myself with her memory keeps me from moving forward." Stacy turned to face him. "Your therapist doesn't live here. You do. And if the photos help, keep them." "What if they're not helping? What if I'm just torturing myself?" "Are you tortured?" Robert looked around the room. At the grand piano with Lily's first recital photo on top. At the painting she'd made in preschool, framed like fine art. At the toy box in the corner that nobody touched. I don't know anymore. Some days I walk through and I feel her. Like she's still here. Other days it's just empty. Just things that used to matter. Stacy took his hand. Show me her room. He hesitated. Stacy. Show me. They climbed the stairs to the second floor. Down a hallway lined with more photos. Lily as a baby, a toddler, a little girl with a gap-toothed smile. Robert stopped outside a door painted lavender. I haven't been in here in 6 months. Housekeeper vacuums, but that's it. We don't have to. No. I want to. With you. He opened the door. The room was perfect. Frozen. Walls painted with clouds and butterflies. A white canopy bed with purple blankets. Stuffed animals arranged just so. Books on shelves. A small desk with crayons still scattered across the surface. Stacy's throat closed. She could feel the love in this room. The careful attention. The way a parent tries to make a space magical. She picked the butterflies, Robert said, voice thick. Insisted on them. Spent a whole weekend with me and a stencil set, deciding exactly where each one should go. It's beautiful. It's a shrine. That's what my ex-wife said before she left. That I'd turned our daughter's room into a shrine and it was unhealthy. Stacy sat on the edge of the bed. The blankets smelled like lavender sachets, carefully maintained. What do you think? I think she's right. And I think I don't care. Robert sat beside her. This room is the last place she was really her. Before the hospital. Before the treatments. Before everything went to hell. In here, she's still for. Still happy. Still mine. Then keep it. I can't live in the past, Stacy. You're not living in the past. You're honoring it. There's a difference. She took his hand, squeezing. Someday, maybe this room will feel different. Maybe you'll be ready to change it. But that day doesn't have to be today. Or tomorrow. Or next year. It gets to be whenever you're ready. Robert's eyes were wet. How are you so sure? Because my mom's bedroom at her house, before I had to sell it, I kept it exactly the same for a year. Her clothes in the closet. Her book on the nightstand. Her reading glasses on the dresser. And people said the same thing. That I was stuck. That I needed to let go. But I wasn't ready. And one day I woke up and I was. It doesn't happen on anyone's timeline but yours. What made you ready? I met someone who needed the furniture more than I needed the shrine. A young mom with 2 kids and nothing. And I realized my mom would want her stuff going to someone who'd use it. Who'd appreciate it. So I let it go. But on my terms. When I was ready. Robert pulled her close. Buried his face in her neck. Thank you. For what? For getting it. For not pushing. For just being here. They sat in Lily's room for a long time. Not talking. Just being. Stacy felt the weight of the space, the grief embedded in every carefully chosen detail. But she also felt something else. Love. Fierce, protective, enduring love. Eventually, Robert stood. Held out his hand. Come on. I want to show you something else. He led her outside, through the gardens to a clearing at the edge of the property. And there, under an oak tree, was a bench. Simple. Wooden. A plaque embedded in the back. For Lily, who loved butterflies and sunshine. Forever for. Forever loved. I come here when it gets too hard. Sit. Talk to her. Tell her about my day. Robert sat on the bench, pulling Stacy down beside him. Sounds crazy, right? No. Sounds like love. I tell her about you sometimes. About this woman who found my wallet and turned out to be the best thing to happen to me in 3 years. Stacy's eyes burned. What do you say? That she'd like you. That you're fierce and kind. That you make me laugh. That maybe possibly, I'm starting to believe in good things again. Robert. I'm falling for you, Stacy. I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But I'm falling, and I can't stop, and I don't want to. Stacy couldn't breathe. The words hung in the air between them, terrifying and perfect. I'm falling for you too. Have been since you stood in your kitchen and told me about Lily's pancakes. Since you let me see you broken. Since you made me feel like maybe I'm not broken either. They kissed under the oak tree, under Lily's memorial, under the weight of everything they'd lost and everything they were finding. When they broke apart, both were crying. But it wasn't sad crying. It was relief. Release. The feeling of finally letting someone in. Stay with me tonight, Robert said. Here. In this house. I don't want to be alone in it anymore. Okay. Yes. They spent the evening making dinner together in Robert's massive kitchen. Pasta because that's what Stacy knew how to make. Robert opened wine, something expensive that he claimed was wasted on him. They ate at the kitchen island, legs tangled together, talking about everything and nothing. After dinner, Robert showed her more of the house. The library with floor-to-ceiling books. The home gym he never used. The office where he spent too many late nights. Each room felt less like a museum and more like possibility. Like maybe this house could be lived in again. In Robert's bedroom, huge, with windows overlooking the mountains, Stacy felt her nerves kick in. They'd slept together. But not here. Not in his space. Not in the bed he'd probably shared with his ex-wife. I can take the guest room, she said quietly. Do you want to? No. But if it's weird. Nothing about this is weird. Or maybe all of it is. But I want you here. In my bed. In my space. I want to wake up and see you. They got ready for bed separately. Stacy borrowed one of Robert's shirts, soft cotton that smelled like him. When she climbed into his bed, the sheets were cool and smooth. Expensive in that way that money can buy but can't replicate. Robert joined her, wearing just boxer briefs. Stacy tried not to stare at his chest, at the lean muscle, at the way he moved with unconscious grace. You're staring, he said, smiling. You're not wearing a shirt. Does that bother you? The opposite of bothers me. He laughed, climbing in beside her. They lay facing each other, close enough to touch but not quite touching. Thank you, Robert said. For today. For seeing Lily's room. For not making me feel like I'm crazy. You're not crazy. You're grieving. And you're starting to live again. Both can be true. Can they? They have to be. Or none of us would survive. Robert kissed her. Soft at first, then deeper. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer. Stacy's fingers traced his chest, feeling his heartbeat, feeling the warmth of him. The kiss grew heated. Desperate. Robert rolled them so Stacy was beneath him, his weight pressing her into the mattress in a way that made her breath catch. Stacy, he whispered against her lips. Tell me to stop if. Don't stop. They made love slowly. Tenderly. Robert learning every inch of her like she was something precious. Stacy discovering what it felt like to be touched by someone who actually saw her. Not just her body but her heart. Afterward, they lay tangled together, sweat-slicked and breathless. Robert's fingers traced patterns on her shoulder. That was... yeah. I haven't, since my wife, I haven't. Stacy kissed his jaw. It's okay. It's not just okay. It's everything. He pulled her closer. You're everything. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, windows open to let in the mountain air. Outside, the night was dark and full of stars. Inside, two people who'd forgotten how to hope were starting to believe again. The next few weeks blurred together in the best way. Stacy split time between her apartment and Robert's house. Hemingway adapted surprisingly well to the larger space, claiming Robert's office as his territory, lounging on the desk while Robert worked late. They fell into domesticity. Morning coffee on Robert's deck, watching the mountains wake up. Grocery shopping together at the Whole Foods where Robert was hilariously out of his element, mystified by the sheer number of tomato sauce options. Lazy Sundays where they did absolutely nothing but exist together. Stacy's co-workers noticed the change. Maya cornered her during a shift, grinning like she'd won the lottery. "You're having sex. Oh my God, you're glowing. You're absolutely having sex. Can you say that louder? I don't think the customers heard. Spill. Now. How is he? He looks like he'd be amazing in bed. Is he amazing? Tell me he's amazing." Stacy's cheeks burned. "I'm not discussing this at work. So he is amazing. I knew it." Maya did a little victory dance between espresso shots. "I'm so happy for you. You deserve this. You deserve someone who looks at you the way he does." "How does he look at me? Like you hung the moon. It's disgusting. I love it." But not everything was easy. 3 weeks into their relationship, reality intruded. Stacy's student loan payment came due. It always came due, but this month was brutal. Rent, utilities, car insurance. By the time she counted what was left in her checking account, the number made her nauseous. She sat on her apartment floor, surrounded by bills, calculator in hand, trying to make the math work. It didn't work. It never worked. She could skip the loan payment, take the hit to her credit. Or she could skip groceries. Or she could. Stacy. She looked up. Robert stood in her doorway. She'd given him a key 2 weeks ago. He was still in work clothes, tie loosened, concern written across his face. "Hey. Didn't hear you come in. I texted. You didn't answer." He took in the scene. Bills. Calculator. Her expression. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Just juggling." "Juggling what?" "Money. The usual." Robert crouched beside her, picking up a bill. His eyes went wide. "Your student loans are how much?" 83,000. Give or take. With interest, it's probably closer to 100,000 now. For a master's degree in social work. For trying to help people. Turns out that's expensive. Stacy took the bill back, adding it to the pile. "But it's fine. I'll figure it out. I always do. Let me help." The words landed heavy. Stacy went still. "No. Stacy. No. I'm not taking your money. It's not about taking my money. It's about me wanting to help someone I care about. Someone who's drowning in debt that shouldn't exist." "I'm not drowning. I'm managing." "Are you?" He gestured to the bills. "Because this looks like drowning. And I have money. More money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Why can't I use some of it to help you?" Stacy stood, needing space. "Because it changes things. It makes this weird. Makes me feel like." "Like what?" "Like I'm using you. Or like you think I'm using you. Or like somewhere down the line, you'll hold it over my head." Robert's expression hardened. "You think I'd do that?" "I don't know. My experience with people who have money is limited. But I've seen enough to know it always comes with strings." "Not with me." "You say that now." "Not with me," he repeated, firmer. "I'm not your ex. I'm not whoever hurt you before. I'm me. And I'm offering to help because I care about you. Because watching you struggle when I could fix it with a phone call feels wrong. It's not your problem to fix. What if I want it to be?" They stared at each other. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Stacy's hands trembled. She wanted to say yes. Wanted to let him fix it. But accepting felt like giving up something essential. Something that made her herself. I need to think about it, she said finally. Robert nodded. Didn't push. Okay. Think about it. But Stacy, for what it's worth, you're not using me. You never could. You're the most genuine person I've ever met. And if you decide to accept help, it doesn't change that. He left her alone to think. The bills sat accusingly on her floor. The calculator still showed the impossible math. Stacy picked up her phone. Called Robert. Hey, he answered immediately. Come back. Please. He was there in 5 minutes. Stacy met him at the door, eyes wet. I hate this, she said. I hate needing help. I hate that you have money and I don't. I hate feeling like I'm the broke girlfriend who can't handle her shit. You're not the broke girlfriend. You're the woman I'm in love with who happens to be dealing with a broken system that preys on people trying to help others. Stacy's breath caught. You're in love with me? Robert's eyes went wide. Like he hadn't meant to say it. Yeah, I am. And I know it's too soon and we should probably wait to say things like that, but I am. I'm in love with you. Robert. You don't have to say it back. I'm not saying it to pressure you. I'm saying it because it's true and because I want you to know that this isn't about money. It's never been about money. It's about us. And if I can make your life easier, I want to. Not because I think you can't handle it, but because I love you and that's what you do when you love someone. Stacy was crying now. Full tears streaming down her face. I don't want to be a charity case. You're not. You could never be. Then what am I? You're everything. He cupped her face, thumbs wiping away tears. Your coffee at 5 a.m. and wildflowers and making me laugh when I forgot how. You're the reason I can walk into Lily's room without breaking. You're the reason I believe in good things again. And if paying off your student loans means you don't have to work 3 jobs and actually have time to breathe, then let me do it. Please. Stacy closed her eyes. Breathed. Opened them to find Robert watching her with so much love it hurt. Okay, she whispered. Okay. But with conditions. Name them. This doesn't make you my savior. I'm still me. Still independent. Still capable. Agreed. And if things go south between us, which I really hope they don't, I pay you back. Every cent. Even if it takes the rest of my life. That won't be necessary, but if it makes you feel better, fine. And you never, ever throw it in my face. Not in a fight. Not when you're angry. Never. Never. I promise. He pulled her close. Anything else? Yeah. I love you too. I'm terrified of it, but I do. I love you. Robert kissed her. Deep and desperate and full of relief. When they broke apart, both were smiling through tears. So we're doing this? Stacy asked. Really doing this? We're doing this. They spent the rest of the evening figuring out logistics. Robert insisted on paying the loans in full, all of them, despite Stacy's protests. He called his financial advisor, transferred funds, made it happen with the kind of efficiency that only serious money could buy. By midnight, Stacy's debt was gone. Just gone. Years of stress. Years of juggling. Years of choosing between eating and paying bills. Erased. She sat on Robert's couch, Hemingway in her lap, trying to process. This doesn't feel real, she said. It's real. Robert sat beside her, arm around her shoulders. You're free. You can focus on finishing school. On building your career. On living instead of surviving. I don't know how to live without financial panic. Then we'll figure it out together. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the mountains were dark shapes against the sky. Inside, everything had shifted. Not in a bad way. Just different. Thank you, Stacy said finally. I know I fought you on this. But thank you. For caring enough to fight back. Always. I'll always fight for you. They went to bed wrapped around each other. Stacy fell asleep feeling lighter than she had in years. Freer. Like maybe the world wasn't just about survival. Maybe it could be about living. Debt-free life was disorienting. Stacy kept checking her bank account, expecting the loans to reappear like a bad dream that wouldn't end. But they didn't. They were gone. She had money left over after bills. Actual money. Money for groceries that weren't ramen. Money for gas without calculating if she could make it stretch another week. "This is weird," she told Robert one morning over coffee. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. No shoes. Just you, me, and the ability to actually breathe. I don't know how to breathe without panic. Then we'll learn together." But learning wasn't simple. With financial stress gone, other fears rushed in to fill the space. Stacy found herself lying awake at night, watching Robert sleep, terrified that this was temporary. That she'd wake up and he'd be gone. That love this good couldn't possibly last. One night, she couldn't take it anymore. "Robert." He stirred, blinking awake. What if this doesn't work?" He propped himself on one elbow, suddenly alert. "What? Us? What if we're moving too fast? What if I'm just a rebound from your grief and you wake up one day and realize you don't actually want this? Stacy. Or what if I'm not enough? What if you get bored? What if the novelty of dating someone normal wears off and you realize you'd rather be with someone in your tax bracket who understands your world?" Robert sat up fully, turning on the bedside lamp. His hair was messy from sleep, his expression serious. "Is that really what you think? That you're a novelty?" "I don't know what I think. I just know this feels too good. And in my experience, things that feel this good don't last. Your mom. My mom. Every relationship I've ever had. Every time I let myself hope for something better, it gets ripped away. So yeah, I'm waiting for you to get ripped away too." Robert pulled her into his lap, arms wrapped tight around her. "I'm not going anywhere. And you're not a rebound or a novelty or anything except the woman I love. The woman I want to build a life with." "You can't promise that." "No. I can't promise the future. Nobody can. But I can promise right now. And right now, I choose you. Tomorrow, I'll choose you. The day after that, I'll choose you. That's all any of us get. Choosing each other, every day, until the days run out." Stacy buried her face in his neck, breathing him in. "I'm scared." "Me too. Every damn day. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe alone." They sat like that until Stacy's breathing evened out. Until the panic receded and she could think clearly again. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For waking you up. For freaking out. Don't apologize for being human. We all have moments. You don't seem to. I hide them better. Years of practice. But trust me, I have them." He kissed her forehead. "Last week I had a full panic attack in my car after a board meeting. Thought I was having a heart attack. Turned out it was just terror that I was going to screw this up. That I'd say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing and you'd leave." "I'm not leaving. Then we're even. Because I'm not either." The conversation should have settled things. Should have eased Stacy's fears. But anxiety is never that simple. Over the next week, the worry festered. Stacy found herself snapping at Robert over small things. The way he loaded the dishwasher. His habit of leaving coffee cups everywhere. The fact that he worked too much and sometimes forgot to eat. Maya noticed during a shift at Mountain Brew. "Okay, what's wrong? You've been weird all week." "Nothing's wrong. Don't lie to me. Is it Robert? Did he do something?" "No. He's perfect. That's the problem." Maya handed her a pastry. "Eat this and explain." Stacy bit into a croissant, the buttery layers melting on her tongue. "He paid off my student loans." "He what?" All of them. Like it was nothing. Just made them disappear. That's amazing. Why do you look like someone died? Because now I owe him. Not officially, but I do. And what if that's all this is? What if he's just some rich guy who gets off on playing savior? Do you actually believe that? No. But I don't know what I believe anymore. Everything's moving so fast, and I can't catch my breath. Maya studied her. You know what I think. I think you're sabotaging. I'm not. You are. You're looking for reasons this won't work because you're terrified it might. Because if it works, you have to let yourself be happy. And happiness feels dangerous after everything you've lost. Stacy's eyes burned. That's not fair. It's completely fair. And you know it. The words sat heavy. Because Maya was right. Stacy was sabotaging. Finding problems where none existed. Creating distance to protect herself from potential hurt. That night, she showed up at Robert's house unannounced. He answered the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair wet from a shower. Hey. I thought you were working late. I need to talk to you. His expression shifted. Became guarded. Okay. They sat on his couch. Hemingway immediately claimed Stacy's lap, purring like a motor. I've been an asshole, Stacy said. This week. I've been picking fights and pushing you away, and I'm sorry. Why? Because I'm scared. Of this. Of us. Of how much I love you. Stacy. Let me finish. Please. She took a breath. My whole life, anything good I've had has been temporary. My dad left when I was 6. My mom died. Relationships never lasted. I learned not to trust happiness because it always ended. And now here you are, this perfect man with his perfect house and his perfect love, and I keep waiting for the catch. For the moment you realize I'm not worth it. You think you're not worth it? I don't know what I am. I just know I don't understand why you chose me. Out of everyone you could have, everyone in your world, with money and connections and the ability to navigate your life, you chose a barista with a shoebox apartment and a bad attitude. Robert's jaw tightened. You want to know why I chose you? Yes. Because you're real. Because you saw me broken and didn't run. Because you make me laugh and you challenge me and you don't let me hide behind money or grief or any of the other bullshit I've used to keep people out. He moved closer. Because when Lily died, I thought I'd never feel anything again. And then you walked into my life with your coffee-stained apron and your stubborn independence and your massive heart, and suddenly I could breathe again. Stacy's vision blurred with tears. You want to know the catch? Robert continued. There isn't one. This is it. Me, loving you. You, hopefully loving me back. Building something together despite all the reasons it shouldn't work. That's the whole story. It sounds too simple. Love is simple. It's everything else that's complicated. Stacy kissed him. Desperate and needy and full of all the things she couldn't say. Robert kissed her back with equal intensity, hands in her hair, pulling her closer. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Stacy pressed her forehead to his. I'm sorry. For freaking out. For making this harder than it needs to be. You're allowed to freak out. Just, don't push me away when you do. Let me be scared with you. Okay. Yeah. I can do that. They spent the rest of the evening on the couch. No TV. No conversation. Just existing together, hands intertwined, breathing in sync. Sometimes the best moments were the quiet ones. The ones where nothing happened except the decision to stay. 3 months in, Stacy finished her final semester. The master's degree she'd been working toward for years was suddenly real. Complete. Done. She walked across a stage in a borrowed cap and gown, accepting her diploma from a dean whose name she'd already forgotten. The auditorium was mostly empty, online students didn't get big ceremonies. But in the third row, Robert stood and cheered like she'd just won an Oscar. Afterward, he met her outside with flowers, wildflowers again, mountain laurel and daisies, and a smile that made her chest ache. "Congratulations, Master Austin." "That sounds weird." "You earned it. You get to be weird about it." They celebrated with dinner at a restaurant Stacy had only dreamed of entering. The kind where they didn't list prices on the menu and the sommelier treated wine selection like a religious ceremony. She wore a dress Robert had bought her, simple, elegant, deep blue, and for once, she didn't feel out of place. "What happens now?" Robert asked over dessert, some chocolate thing that probably cost more than her old weekly grocery budget. "Now I look for jobs. Start applying to social work positions. Become a real adult." "You're already a real adult." "You know what I mean. A career adult. Someone with health insurance and a retirement plan and business cards." "Thrilling. Terrifying, actually. What if nobody hires me? What if my degree is worthless? What if I'm not actually good at this?" Robert reached across the table, taking her hand. "You're going to be amazing. You have this way of making people feel seen, heard. That's not something you can teach. That's just who you are. You're biased. Completely. Doesn't make me wrong." They drove home, and Stacy realized with a start that she'd thought home and meant Robert's house, not her apartment, in comfortable silence. The mountain roads were dark, winding through forest that pressed close on either side. "Move in with me," Robert said suddenly. Stacy's head whipped toward him. "What? Move in? Officially? Stop splitting time between two places. Bring Hemingway permanently. Make my house feel like a home." "Robert, I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a few months. But I love you. I want you in my space all the time, not just most of the time. I want to wake up with you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want your books everywhere and your coffee cups in my sink and your voice filling up the silence." Stacy's heart hammered. "That's a big step." "I know. But I'm ready for big steps." "Are you?" Was she? Living together meant commitment. Meant trusting this wouldn't fall apart. Meant believing in a future she'd spent her whole life being afraid to want. "Yes," she heard herself say. "Yeah. Let's do it." Robert's smile could have lit the whole mountain. "Really? Really? On one condition." "Name it. I pay rent. Or contribute somehow. I'm not living in your house like some kept woman." "Stacy." "Non-negotiable. You paid my loans. That was huge. But this is different. We're building a life together. That means I contribute." Robert was quiet for a moment. Then, "Okay. You can handle groceries and utilities. Does that work?" "That works." They spent the next 2 weeks moving Stacy's life into Robert's house. It didn't take long. She didn't have much. But each box she unpacked felt significant. Her books next to his on the library shelves. Her clothes in his closet. Her toothbrush permanently in the bathroom instead of living in her purse. Hemingway took over the house like he'd been planning a coup. Within days, he'd established territory in every room, leaving cat hair on furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Your cat is an asshole," Robert said one morning, finding Hemingway sleeping on his laptop. "I warned you." "You did." Doesn't make it less true. But despite Hemingway's reign of terror, the house felt different. Lived in. Warm. Stacy's presence filled the spaces that grief had hollowed out. Photos of Lily stayed on the walls, but now there were photos of Stacy too. The two loves of Robert's life, occupying the same space. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt right. One evening, Stacy found Robert in Lily's room. He was sitting on the floor, photo album open in his lap, tears streaming down his face. "Hey." She sat beside him. "You okay?" "Just remembering." Looking at pictures from her 4th birthday. The last one she had. Stacy looked at the photos. A little girl with dark curls and a gap-toothed smile, surrounded by balloons and cake. Robert and his ex-wife on either side, smiling like their world wasn't about to end. She was beautiful. She was everything. His voice cracked. And some days I'm terrified I'm forgetting her. That the edges are getting fuzzy. That I'm replacing her with you. You're not replacing her. How do you know? Because love doesn't work like that. It's not a container with limited space. You can love her and love me. Both. Fully. They're different loves. Different parts of you. One doesn't cancel out the other. Robert leaned against her. You really believe that? I do. I loved my mom. Love her still. But I also love you. Neither diminishes the other. They just exist. Side by side. They sat in Lily's room until the sun set, painting the walls in soft orange light. Robert told stories about his daughter. The funny ones, the ridiculous ones, the ones that made them both laugh until they cried. Thank you, he said finally. For this. For not being jealous of a memory. I could never be jealous of her. She made you who you are. And I love who you are. That night, lying in bed, Robert pulled Stacy close. I want to take you somewhere. Show you something. Where? It's a surprise. This weekend. Pack a bag. Casual clothes. Hiking boots if you have them. Mysterious. I contain multitudes. Saturday morning, they drove into the mountains. Higher than Asheville, into wilderness that felt untouched by civilization. Robert navigated winding roads with confidence, windows down, letting in air that smelled like pine and possibility. They hiked for an hour. Not too strenuous, but enough that Stacy's legs burned by the time they reached the clearing. And there, nestled in trees with a view that stretched for miles, was a cabin. Small. Simple. Beautiful. What is this? Stacy asked. Mine. Well, ours now. I bought it years ago, before Lily got sick. Was going to fix it up, make it a family retreat. But after she died, I couldn't come here. Too many plans that never happened. He took her hand. But I want to make new plans. With you. Stacy's throat felt tight. Robert. I want this to be our place. Somewhere we can escape when life gets too loud. Somewhere that's just ours. He pulled her close. What do you think? I think you're going to make me cry. Is that a yes? That's a yes. They spent the rest of the day exploring the cabin. It needed work, new roof, updated plumbing, a kitchen that wasn't from 1975. But the bones were good. Solid. And the location was perfect. They sat on the porch as the sun set, mountains stretching endlessly in every direction. Robert had brought wine and sandwiches. They ate and drank and watched the sky turn colors that didn't have names. I'm happy, Stacy said quietly. Like, really happy. It's terrifying. Why terrifying? Because I keep waiting for it to end. For the universe to remember I'm not supposed to have this. What if the universe doesn't work like that? What if you're exactly where you're supposed to be? Then I'm the luckiest person alive. We both are. They stayed at the cabin overnight, sleeping in a bed that creaked and a room that smelled like dust and disuse. But wrapped in Robert's arms, listening to the forest breathe outside, Stacy felt something she'd never felt before. Peace. Complete, overwhelming peace. Maybe happiness wasn't about waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe it was about holding on tight and trusting the fall was worth it.